My project that I'll be talking about today is food habits of mountain lions in the Arizona White Mountains. The overview of the presentation, we're going to talk about some mountain lion information, then get into the hypotheses and objectives for the study, as well as the need for and significance of the project, and then get into the experimental plan and the research outcomes. So the mountain lion, as you may know, it goes by many names: cougar, catamount, panther, puma, depending on where you are. And it's native to the Americas. So it can be named by many different languages. So English, Spanish, and even Portuguese when you get into Brazil. The home range extends all the way from northern North America all the way to southern South America, and the Yukon region in the north, and then the southern Andes in the south. This is the home range that you'll see with that northern range limit. So the red and the pink is primarily where you'll find populations of mountain lion today. However, in the yellow is where it historically was found as well. So it used to encompass all of the Americas up into the northern range limit. There are a few reasons for decline, but I'll talk about historically as well as today. So historically, there are two main reasons. The first one is going to be European settlement. So as settlers came to America, they started to fragment and push back populations of mountain lion by setting establishments and hunting these mountain lions and pushing them back for their own safety. And then as well as just taking resources from nature and destroying some of their habitats and home ranges. Once we were established as a nation, we started to expand west and push west and explore west. So that increased the disturbance on mountain lions as well. Same reasons for settlement too, but then there were more fragmented populations of mountain lion. And then if you go back up to where I showed you, the populations today are going to be more in the west, and it'll be extinct in the east. All right, so for today, there are a couple of reasons for decline. The first one is going to be civilization establishment and city expansion. So in this picture, you see this mountain lion, and then you see city lights in the background. So that's not historically something that the mountain lion populations have been used to, but something that is a norm for them today. However, the city expansion are going to push back these mountain lion populations, make their home ranges smaller, and then fragment populations too when we're establishing new roads and things. And then this also increases mountain lion human interaction, which is, again, not something that mountain lions would prefer or were used to in the past. So that's going to disturb and ruin mountain lion populations as well. And then hunting, whether it's recreationally, trophy, or predator control. So I'll explain some of the trophy and predator, or the recreation and trophy first. So in terms of female, typically for recreation and trophy hunting, we select for the larger cats. So with that, say we go after an adult female. So say that adult female has cubs. So now we've eliminated that adult female, and then we've eliminated the cubs that relied on her, that can't live on their own. So right off the bat, we've eliminated at least 2 mountain lions, but up to maybe even 5. And then say we go after an adult male. The same thing could be present, but also adult males will establish home ranges. So if we eliminate an adult male from a home range, that invites other males to come in. So say that they're juvenile males. Adult males are typically going to be more passive and avoiding of humans. But juvenile males haven't established that instinct quite yet. So juvenile males may be more erratic and dangerous. So that gets into predator control, because if these are areas, so like hiking trails and things like that, these juvenile males may pose a threat to humans, thus leading to predator control. And I'm sure most of you have seen that video of that one hiker who was being stalked by a mountain lion, which was pretty abnormal. And then there's also hunting of its prey, so potential prey. So that's limiting prey in their areas, which makes it harder for them to hunt and find their prey, which may move them out of certain areas and things like that. So there are many myths and misconceptions that surround mountain lion as well, and I'll present some of them and give some truths behind them as well. All right, so the first is that there's a threat to the safety of man. That is more than valid, yes, but typically mountain lions are going to try to avoid humans, as humans are seen more of a threat to them as they are a threat to us, by their standards. So in this study, I thought was really cool. It actually showed some of the extrinsic value of mountain lions for human safety in a way. This is a very small example, but I still think it's pretty interesting. So in this region, they looked at cougar establishment, and how that affected vehicular collisions with deer. So from 1996 to 2004, there was a sharp increase of vehicular collisions with deer. However, after cougars were established in that area, in rural areas, it decreased, the vehicular collisions with deer, and then it leveled off in the urban. So this was pretty interesting because, like, in a way, the cougars selected for some of the deer that would normally find themselves running out in the middle of the street. So there were less collisions with deer, which could have saved some humans. So a very loose concept, but I still think it's pretty interesting. So there's the idea that they kill a large number of livestock and pets. So that's not necessarily true. The USDA did a study that surveyed, or took inventory of 99.6 million livestock, so cattle and sheep particularly, and then looked at their causes of death. So down in the bottom, we see that for cattle, there was 0.23% that was predator mortality, so predator caused mortality. And then sheep, it was 4.3. So that's a grand total of 0.47% of all the livestock in this study that had a cause of death that was due to predator. And notice I said predator, so that includes other predators, not just mountain lion. So if we just take mountain lion, the percentage will be even smaller than the 0.47%. So it's not necessarily valid to say that they kill a large number of livestock and pets. So another myth is that it reduces the ungulate presence in the wild and thus limits the trophy animals for hunting. So the deer populations relative to lion populations are going to be mirrored. So as deer populations increase, mountain lion populations will increase, and then vice versa. So as deer populations decrease, mountain lion population decrease. So mountain lion populations will self-regulate in a way based on resource availability, as well as other factors. If there's less prey available, there's less mountain lions that will survive. So less mountain lions will be reproduced and brought into the population too. So their population numbers will go down. And same for deer. So they'll kind of mirror it. And then also, mountain lions tend to select for less fit individuals for consumption. So that's not necessarily going to be animals that we would go after for trophy hunting. So in a way, they're actually promoting the gene pool for trophy hunting by eliminating some of the less fit individuals. And then lastly, killing mountain lions will grow abundant prey herds. So again, that's not necessarily true. So this study looked at the removal of mountain lions and then comparing that to the fawn ratio. So for the survival rate from birth to that first year. So we see that mountain lion removal, as it increases, there's a weak correlation to the survival rate of fawns. So it's not necessarily valid to say that mountain lion elimination will grow abundant prey herds. So now we're going to talk about some of the habitat. So with such an extensive home range, there's a bunch of different habitats that these creatures can inhabit. So this all depends on hunting and protection. So mountain lion, they like to stalk and have cover when they're going after prey and when they're dealing with other animals, including humans. Having the room to roam and territory establishment. These mountain lions, they can have territories up to 5 or 50 square kilometers to 100 square kilometers. It can be a pretty extensive home range. So they need that room to roam and to establish a territory. And then establishing a territory will push other mountain lions to move to another territory. So if one's already established, they have to move to a different one. And then also being away from humans, as I said, most mountain lions are not going to want to be around humans. And then also location. So looking at like the climate in the area. So like looking at in the north, in the Yukon region, as opposed to Southwest US, it's going to be slightly different based on terrain and climate. And then I also looked at the vegetation types that mountain lions tend to select for. Is primarily going to be chaparral, scrub, riparian, and grassland. So remember that, because we'll get back to that in a second. So for the study, we're looking at food habits. So that's typically going to be what an animal eats and how. But for our study, we're primarily going to explore what mountain lions eat. So with that, we expect a high ungulate diet, and I'll get into that for the hypothesis in a second, but we'll expect to see mule deer and white-tailed deer, elk, bison, bighorn sheep, feral horses, javelina, and pronghorn and other antelopes. So that's not to say that we won't also find other animals that will make up some of the food habits and be found in the diet of mountain lions, because this is a very variable a site within the Southwest US. So food habit studies and our prediction on the food habits of a particular species are based on prey availability, prey accessibility, and prey abundance. So with prey availability, it's essentially just prey being available in the areas that the predator is in. So looking at this study in California, so pockets of mountain lions are in the green, same with the deer. Pockets of deer are going to be in the darker green. So say this region right here in this season. So mountain lion are going to be heavily populated in this area, same with deer. So we would expect that deer would be high in the food habits of mountain lion in that season. However, if we look at that same area here as opposed to here, it might be less. So the prey that they would select for may be a different prey because there's less deer in that area. So this one is also looking at, I believe, mule deer and looking at the vegetation that they select for. So as I said, we have mixed chaparral, riparian, and grassland primarily for mountain lion. So mixed chaparral is going to be this one, riparian is going to be this one, and grassland is going to be this one. So as you can see, they're pretty low depending on the season. And typically prey are going to try to avoid the areas where predators are going to hunt them for their own survival. Obviously, there can be exceptions if they're going to go for resources and risk that, but typically they're going to avoid those areas. So based on that, with the areas that we would expect to find a mountain lion and the areas that we would expect to find some of their prey, we might predict otherwise for the food habits. So then we get into prey accessibility, which is essentially the ease of accessing a prey, of having a successful kill. So within this study, they looked at successful kills by mountain lions by prey, or of prey. So looking at the number of deer and then the age and their sex. So as you can see, before I explain deeper into what this is, we see that females are selected for more than males, which makes sense because typically males are going to be harder to go after than females for a mountain lion. And then, so this black region is going to be disease-infected individuals, so disease-infected deer. So we'll use the 2 to 4 males as an example to explain this better. So within 2 to 4, a male deer is going to be very potent and hard to take down for a mountain lion. So we see that the bulk of this age group is going to be disease infected. So the accessibility of this 2 to 4 region is going to be easier if they're infected, which will be selected for mountain lion. And then lastly is going to be prey abundance. So it's similar to prey availability, but it's just the abundance of prey in that area. So not just them being in the area, but how much prey is in that area. So right off the bat, we can see feral hog is by far the highest amount. So this study was done in Texas, where there's a high feral hog population. So that won't necessarily be true for Arizona, where we'll do our study, and in the White Mountains, where we won't necessarily find feral hogs in the mountains. So eliminating feral hog, we get to deer. So whether it's all deer, mule deer, and white-tailed deer, where it makes up 321, 115, and 109. So that's a high majority of the prey being abundant in that area in the Southwest US. So we would expect deer to make up a big bulk of it. And then the next up would be elk. And then excluding coyote, the next up would be javelina. So based on all that I said, the hypothesis that we have is that the mountain lion diet in the White Mountains will show a high ungulate prey frequency and be comparable to similar semi-arid mountainous populations in the southwestern US. So we have 2 objectives that we plan on exploring with this. So we plan to characterize mountain lion diet by building a prey frequency representation from scat analysis. And then we plan to compare food habits of the mountain lions in the White Mountains of Arizona to other populations in the Southwest US and Arizona. So the need for and significance of this study. So this population has been scarcely studied. So more information on this population could be vital and important. So the goals that we have are to illustrate the prey frequency in the diet based on habitat and location, and then to provide information on the variation of food habits of the mountain lions in the White Mountains of Arizona. So ultimately, we want to suggest the ecological impact of mountain lions in the area, which can lead to more knowledge for management and conservation in that region. So now we'll get into the experimental plan and talk about the study area. So this is our study area over here. I'll do a zoom out version so you can see relatively where it is in Arizona, but it's about 19,000 square kilometers. However, we're not going to traverse this entire area. We'll focus primarily in these boxes, which are going to be about 225 square kilometers. These are camera trap cells. And we're going to do these areas because they're known to be highly trafficked by mountain lions. So because of those camera traps, we'll know that we'll find plenty of scat in those areas and plenty of mountain lions in those areas. This is the relative zooming out of our study area and where it is in Arizona and the White Mountain region. And then also looking at the populations of the mountain lion in that study area. So you see that in this picture, it's primarily at least average. So that's good. That's what we want. We want a good population size for mountain lions. So we expect to find plenty of scat and plenty of mountain lions in the region. And then just to double check, I found another source where the orange is going to be high, which makes up a majority of it. And then this green area is going to be medium. And then this dark blue is low. So there's a very low amount of low, which is great. So we expect to find a good amount of mountain lion and plenty of scat for our study. All right, so another zooming out relative study area map, but this is to show the ecoregions of the study area. So going north to south in this top area is going to be the Arizona, New Mexico mountain or Arizona, New Mexico plateau region. And then in the middle, which makes up the bulk of it, is going to be the Arizona, New Mexico mountains forest region. And then in the south is going to be the Chihuahuan Desert region. So I bring up these ecoregions because these are going to affect the prey availability of the study areas, and then thus will affect what we would expect to find in those areas. So again, going from north to south, we start with the Arizona, New Mexico Plateau region, which is going to be a desert xeric landscape and an arid, semi-arid climate where we'll primarily find javelina, feral horses, bighorn sheep, desert rodents, foxes, and coyotes. So that's kind of what we would expect in that northern part. So then going more south and then up in elevation, we get to the Arizona, New Mexico mountains forest region, which is going to be a temperate coniferous forest landscape and climate, which, like I said, is going to make up the bulk of the study area. And primarily we'll find deer, elk, and bobcats. So that deer and elk, that's why we would expect those to be the highest, because it's going to be the largest part of our study area. And then lastly is going to be the Chihuahuan Desert region, which is the southernmost part of it. Here is going to be a desert landscape. It'll have the lowest elevation, lowest precipitation, and then lowest climate variation. And then primarily here we'll find pronghorn and antelopes, bighorn sheep, desert rodents, similar things that we have found in the northernmost. So getting into the materials and methods, objective one in collecting the scat, we're going to opportunistically walk the trails. We'll do exploratory searches to test the time and efficiency. We'll do this about 1 to 2 weeks. We'll collect into Ziploc bags and label where and when we find them. And then we'll freeze and then we'll store or ship them depending on if I'm collecting or if the team will collect. It'll mostly be a team with houndsmen that will go out and collect the scat for us and then ship it to us. So then getting into the scat analysis and prey frequency, we'll start down by breaking down the fecal samples and then cleaning them, filtering out the prey items, and then prey items are going to be any identifiable item for a particular species. So that might be nails, hair, teeth, bones, things like that, feathers, that will be identifiable for a particular species. So we'll use a dichotomous key that we'll develop using other keys from other studies, and then a reference collection of hair and bone fragments from other lion studies, or mountain lion studies to be particular. So then we'll develop a prey frequency table looking at the frequency of occurrence, which is the frequency of a prey item across all scat samples, and then a relative frequency of occurrence, which is the frequency of species prey item and relative to other prey items. We'll do this seasonally and annually. So this is primarily what the chart's going to look like. So a particular prey, we'll say white-tailed deer, and then every time a white-tailed deer prey item shows up in a particular fecal sample. And then the frequency of occurrence, relative frequency of occurrence by season, and then overall. So then objective 2, like I said, we're going to compare the test to, or compare and test it to other studies and evaluate significance using p-value. So like with this study, this was in Sonora, Mexico, which is northern part of Mexico that borders Arizona, I believe. So here they have frequency of occurrence, and they looked at months between October and June. So we would just compare it that way. And then over here, we have the Sierra Nevada on the eastern part in California, which is great because that's going to be closer to Arizona. So they did by season, so winter and summer, and they did frequency of occurrence as well. So we would compare it that way too. Come on. Okay. All right. So this is the timetable. So we started doing some of the research in fall 2020, and as you can see, we haven't quite picked back up until like now. So COVID's been a huge issue for that, but we plan on getting back on track here soon. So the significance of research outcomes. So like I said before, knowledge of the food habits of the mountain lion in the Arizona White Mountains could be vital for the management and conservation. Then information on an understudied population would be great. Then ultimately, insight on variation of food habits within the Southwest US for this mountain lion. And as I close, I want to give some acknowledgments and thanks to Dr. John Cox, my advisor, helping me out throughout this proposal and project. Then Dr. Sean Murphy, who's our man on the ground in Arizona. Then Dr. Price and Breezy and all of my 601 classmates for helping me throughout this proposal with their comments and their encouragements and all the great things they've done for me. Yeah, and this is all of my literature cited. So I'll open it up for questions.